Hello, how is it going for you? I want to talk to you today about the naked missionary. I know that sounds a bit clickbaity, but anyway, you'll see what that all means when we get into the second half of this talk this morning. As a pastor, I've always had a heart for mission, for people who need to hear about Jesus. You know, Jesus said, go into all the world and share the gospel. Well, that's always been something on my heart. There's just so many people that don't know about the Lord, and what a difference the Lord makes, not only for our lives now, but for all eternity. Sometimes our lives now can actually even become a bit more difficult when we become Christians. But the Lord does make a difference to how we feel. We get eternal security. It's all wonderful. The gospel is wonderful. And so as a young pastor, I started, researching. One of the things that happened to me was, as a young pastor, I was told that every church needed what they called an unreached people group. And what they were saying was, you need a country or a tribal group or something that's kind of challenging, and you need to make it like your prayer focus for your church. So, when I was in Mount Morgan, we picked a group. It was the Maldives, a nation. The only nation where the entire nation is an unreached people group. And that's, of course, defined as less than 1% Christian. So anyway, that was our focus. But I got interested in all this stuff, was researching, and through the process of that, I got thinking about uncontacted tribes. So these are like tribes that live in the middle of the Amazon jungle or something, and no one really talked to them before. And that was really fascinating as well. And saw some videos of people reaching out to tribes, and the first contact was like captured. So fascinating. And through that process of research, I discovered about this tribe that live on North Sentinel Island. And they're still there, and it's an island that's a part of India, but it's kind of geographically a bit distant from India, but it belongs to the Indian government. And this particular tribe is in that category of uncontacted. They do know that there are other people out there, but they kind of choose to stay to themselves. And this particular group's got its own language. They kind of know that because people in nearby islands who were colonised by the British went to visit and found they couldn't talk with them. And this particular tribe's got its own language, but what's uniquely interesting about them is they're just so hostile. They're wild and they're ferocious, and what happened was when the British were going through the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they were colonialising, and they were having a great deal of success. And one of the things they used to do was they would go to an island where there were people they'd never seen before, and they would actually kidnap a few of them. And so they went to North Sentinel Island and they actually kidnapped a man and a woman and 4 little kids. And the theory was you'd take them away to wherever you get your base is, and you'd have them with you for years. You'd learn to communicate with them, and they would learn to communicate with you, and then you'd go back. So this is just one of the strategies the British used. But anyway, what happened was they kidnapped this man and woman and these 4 kids from North Sentinel Island, and the man and the woman die and just leave these 4 kids. The 4 kids are not handling it very well without anyone that they can understand. So the British, in their great wisdom, decide to just drop them back on the beach. So they take these 4 kids, drop them back to North Sentinel Island, and that's it. And so the islanders on North Sentinel Island, their perspective of the whole world out there is brought to them by 4 children who had a traumatic experience at the hands of the British colonists. And they may have been a hostile tribe anyway. We don't really know, but they're definitely a hostile tribe now. They resist outside contact. And there's been these series of events that have proved that. And one of these was in 1981, this ship kind of wrecked itself on the beach at North Sentinel Island, the Primrose. And this is an iron boat. And the islanders are out there shooting bows and arrows at the sailors, and the men are on the boat all scared, and they were there for several days until finally they were rescued by helicopter. In the mid-90s, I think the Indian government decided to do a census. They wanted to know how many people live on this island, so they sent these 2 census workers who were never seen again. They were just killed. And in 2004, when the tsunami went right across the Indian Ocean, it had profound effect on North Sentinel Island. The whole island actually lifted about a metre out of the ocean. Like, it was changed. The beaches were changed and everything due to the earthquake that was nearby. And so the Indian government wanted to kind of know, were those people okay? And they flew over, and, you know, there's a picture of an islander kind of like, you know, holding a spear up the sky. So that even in those moments, every recent contact's been pretty hostile. And because of the nature of that, the Indian government banned, in more recent times, they banned all visits to the island. So it's actually illegal to go there. And there's a Navy boat that circles the island kind of at a distance and keeps an eye on it, makes sure no one's going there. So reaching the island, if you were to say to yourself, the Lord said, go into all the world with the gospel, and here's a challenging place, and you wanted to go there, you'd have to come up with a unique strategy. And quite a few years ago, we had an annual conference, one of our apostolic summits, and we have 8 sessions. And my dad had said to me, he said, bring a feature highlight in each of the sessions, you know, one place in the world where the gospel has got real needs, and you know, we're going to pray. So I talked about some interesting places like, you know, the people that live in the Chernobyl radioactive zone. You know, like, people are going to go in there and share the gospel with them, but it's you know, maybe has some health concerns. And I highlighted these different places like that, and one of them was North Sentinel Island. And I'd come up with my own, what I thought was a unique strategy. And my thought was that the problem that these people have must be fear. They're afraid of outsiders, and I thought you've got to kind of minimise the fear. And I thought the best way of doing that would be to go naked. And I thought, take children with you, because I thought, what could be more disarming than arriving naked with kids? And well, when I suggested that in our meeting, in our annual conference, that just, for some reason, everyone just thought that was hilarious. My dad could hardly control himself with laughter. All he could do was just try to keep standing up. And but the thing was, I was being completely serious. Like, I was thinking, what's an actual practical strategy for reaching these people? You know, go naked. To me, it just made sense. And everyone thought it was very funny. But the islands, you know, this whole question of this type of thing, it's raised a lot of ethical questions, or a lot of gospel questions or theological questions. For example, you know, we've got Jesus saying, go into all the world and preach the gospel. So we've got the word of the Lord to go. But then we've got the Indian government who've made a law saying, you're not allowed to go. You're not allowed to go to this island. So there's a question there, you know, do you obey the Lord? Do you obey the law of the country that you're in? Then you've got questions like, would you be willing to risk your life in such a hostile environment? But then there are other questions, you know, how do people get saved? How can someone get saved if they don't hear? And then one of the age-old questions is, well, what about all those people that never heard about Jesus? You know, like through the years since Jesus died on the cross, and what about all those people before Jesus died on the cross? You know, some people say that seems a bit unfair, that they never got to hear the gospel. And North Sentinel Island's like this living example of that, like right now, because they're kind of like unable to hear the gospel. So these are all the types of ethical and theological questions that, and some people think God's unfair. Well, you know, as Christians, we still wrestle with some of these questions. And so there was a gentleman just 2 years ago, his name was John Allen Chow, and he decided he was going to go. He was going to go to North Sentinel Island, and he prepared himself. He went to Bible college, and he learnt biblical languages, and obviously he couldn't learn their language. The only way to learn that would be to go there. And he managed to get, he had to be sneaky. He hired local fishermen to kind of go nearby the island, and then he canoed in, and he went there the first time, and they tried to spear him, and he actually got a spear into his Bible, but he managed to escape. And he tried to go, he decided he was going back the next day, and the next day he wasn't so lucky. And the fishermen on the boat saw him from a distance, and he was speared, and that was the end of him. And so here's a bloke full of zeal for the Lord, decided to obey the Lord and not the Indian government. It provoked a lot of discussion There's, of course, a lot of negative opinions of people who don't think like Christians. There's mission organisations who had a lot of positive things to say, admiring his courage and bravery. All we can say about it is it definitely produced things to think about, questions to consider. One thing we can say for sure is that as Christians, our role really is to promote the gospel. But how is the best way of doing that? In all situations, but some of them are quite unique, like this one. Anyway, in the aftermath of John Allen dying and all the discussion, it came to light that there was an anthropologist, a woman from India. Her name was Madhumala Chattopadhyay. I hope I said that right. Anyway, this woman, anthropologist, she devoted her life to this chain of islands. And she had actually visited North Sentinel Island and had a friendly contact. She had gone as a woman and had handed coconuts and things to the islanders, and there's photos online of that. And I think part of it was the fact that she was a woman. And that was kind of never mentioned anywhere, but as I was reading about it, I thought, a woman going is definitely less threatening than a man. And in her, she had been commenting on the death of John Allen Chow, and one of the things that I found so interesting in her comments was she said, if he had gone naked, they wouldn't have killed him. And that was the comment. And she's not a Christian, she's Indian, but she's an anthropologist. She'd spent time with tribes all through this island chain, and she'd actually had a successful visit to this island and didn't die. And her comment was, if he had have gone naked, he would quite likely have survived. I found that really, really interesting. It validated my theory as a strategy. And so, even though I'm no anthropologist, it seems I had a hunch. And I think what the North Sentinel Islanders need is a naked missionary. And is it you? I'm not assuming it's you. Considering it's an illegal thing to go visit, considering all the challenges of even getting there in the first place, it's logistically hard to get to, lots of things. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I'm certainly not encouraging people to break the law. But at the same time, maybe what's needed is a fully clothed, prayerful missionary. Maybe what's really needed is someone who'll keep their clothes on, stay at home, and just pray for North Sentinel Island. And I'm going to take you to one scripture today before we close, and it's Revelation chapter 7, verse 9, and this is what it says in the NIV. This is John. He's he's having his vision of Christ. And he says, after this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, with palm branches in their hands. Isn't that amazing? Here's a passage from the Bible where John sees a huge crowd worshipping the Lord from every tribe and every people and language. So, guess what? There's people from North Sentinel Island in this vision worshipping the Lord. How on earth did they get there? How did they get saved? How did they hear of Christ? We don't know. But what we can tell, because the Bible shows us, is that they do hear of Christ. And you know what I think? I think our prayers are just needed for this. Not just for them, but for lots of different people. There are so many groups of people in the world with needs. And whenever you hear of a need and it touches your heart, just pray. Because half of the power of half of the gospel effort that's needed is the prayer effort. And the Lord has the most creative ways of bringing the truth to people. You think about your own life and how you realize things and how the Lord taught you. Well, the Lord's just creative. It's not the same way every time. And when there's genuine, unique circumstances, the Lord can work in genuinely unique ways. And I wouldn't even be surprised if the visit of John Allen Chow somehow, even though we wouldn't know how, is part of God's grand plan to bring the gospel to them. So we may not understand some of those questions, about how do people get saved if they don't hear the gospel. But we know that Jesus died for all people. We know that the death of Christ on the cross was because he loved the world. He loved all groups. And exactly how that's going to affect an isolated group like these islanders, we don't understand. But I think we just take our stand on Scripture and say we do trust the Lord. And when we see a need that's unique and difficult and challenging, we just take it upon ourselves to not be a naked missionary, even though that may be needed one day, but to be a fully clothed, prayerful missionary. So that's your call today, to remain fully clothed and to pray. And the scriptures do tell us as well to be clothed in our right minds. And so we do. We take on the mind of the Lord, the way he thinks, and we say, Lord, change us to be like you. And we put before him in our prayers the needs of the gospel. So thanks for listening today. I hope it was interesting. And whenever you remember the North Sentinelese, send a prayer toward the Lord and ask for a unique solution to this unique problem. God bless you.